Okay, awesome. Well, thank you. And I want to say too, we've been established for 2 years, and we just value like sacred space. And so there was a time when we offer to record, but over the years we found that the information that we share within these spaces have been really helpful as a reference for later, and something that we can continue to share with other um, uh, birthing families within our community. So that's why we decided this go round this year, and I think we started halfway last year, anyway, like around June, of recording these things because it's been really helpful in additional conversation and you not having to know everything, and it being a springboard for just a springboard for, conversation and not having to know all the answers. So it's pretty dope. So what I'd like to do to get started, hi, Defina. I love to see,
hey,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year and happy birthday.
Thank you. Oh, I was not going to get that, but since we're going to get and it was Tia's birthday too. That's her special.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. You see, I still got my backdrop up. I'm not ready to let it go yet.
I know that's right. When's your birthday, Tia?
On the 18th.
Okay, nice. My birthday's next month.
Okay.
Was it good?
So yeah, I was to, find background about Mahogany Mothers Circle, a little bit about how we get down. And we are just really excited about this year because we added some additional features. One, we started on Zoom. So we went back to Zoom during these wintry months. If it wasn't blurry out here, like I've gotten stuck in the snow so many times this week. So I'm happy that we've gone back to Zoom primarily, but then we meet for brunches. And so I'm really excited to talk further about our partnership in additional leadership with Danette Hollowell, who is on here as well right now. And then we are doing a Mahogany Circle podcast, and that's more so for Black women. And we have different discussions about anything from finances to boundaries, and pretty much continue the conversation that we continue to have in these circles. And then we are a reflection of our birthing community. So we have doulas as well as breastfeeding experts and health and wellness coaches, and just a wealth of resources, especially since I myself am a doula. And this is how this got to be, is because we really just need not just that labor support, but postpartum support, and that special space where it's nothing but us to have conversations and hold space for each other confidentially as much as we can, with us recording now, but just honoring our conversations so that when we do talk about these conversations further with other people, we remember the sacredness of the conversation and we carry that in good faith to share with others. So how I'd like to start is to have everyone introduce themselves. And then I would like to do a grounding activity, and we'll do an icebreaker question when we introduce. So when we introduce, and Donna, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself in your role as well. But the question for everyone is, what is one lesson you have taken away from the shift in our society right now? What is one lesson you have learned that you're really thankful you've learned during this time? And if I'm going to answer, I'm going to ask that question first. I'll answer it by saying I'm just really working on breath and grounding. So I really take it seriously, far more than I did before, of just reminding how important it is to regulate myself through breath and grounding.
I like that.
I'll pass it to Danette because I'm excited for her to introduce herself.
Tried to unmute myself and I got like a cookie right in the way. Hi, I'm Danette Hollowell, and I joined Mahogany Mamas recently. I am going to be creative engagement. I believe that's what we decided on. And I am a creative. I'm a singer. I went through the training for doula and lactation counseling. Just seeing the disparities that were going on with Black and brown mothers and children, and just those high rates, those high mortality rates were really concerning to me. And then I myself had a child during pandemic. So it's all really come full circle. And I'm looking forward to engaging mamas on that sort of creative side and that doing things that you love to do, which is something that I am absolutely working on and focused on in 2023, that we as mamas still got to follow our dreams and do the things that make us happy, and be involved in things that we're passionate about, be it outreach, social work, fashion, music, whatever that looks like. I just want to be here to really encourage mamas to keep doing that.
You're muted.
Yeah, I was done. Was there more?
No.
You muted.
No, thank you. I was just wah. No, I said awesome. Thank you for sharing. So excited to be a part of the team. So I'd like to pass it on to, it says A Rose.
Hi. Hi. I'm Alma Rose, and I'm actually here just for information. I didn't know anything about the group until my sister texted me that she would be interviewed today. So I'm looking forward to the information that you guys have.
Awesome. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
And Dafina.
Sorry, my baby's having a breakdown in the background. I don't know what's wrong with her. But so I kind of got distracted. But what was the question again? So just introduce ourselves.
Learned in COVID. Introduce yourself with one lesson that you've learned in COVID that you like happy you learned.
So I'm Dafina. I've known Marpesa for several years since high school. Became a part of this group once I also had a baby kind of during the pandemic, I guess. She was born in 2021. So what I learned from the pandemic was that everybody does have the ability to work from home. And I did also learn that working from home, you start to lose like the elements of going to work, like actually getting up and going into work, getting dressed, going out, seeing people. So what I learned is that I had to make an effort to actually have a external network for myself outside of just working from home and being in the house with the baby and all that for almost 2 years. So I found myself finding different ways to connect with different people outside of the house. Well, yeah.
I love that. Oh, and Donette says babies having meltdowns in the background is part of the experience. Our children regularly make appearances in these videos and meetings. Absolutely. Like,
yes.
Funny you should say that because I have one about to climb up here right now. So,
I think that's what my baby wants to do. And
totally
no.
permitted all the time. Well, I just want to introduce Tia so that we can get started. and I do want you to answer the question once you take the mic for sure, but I have to give context as to how this relationship has bloomed. And it started when I wanted to be more intentional about extending my network. And so I started with Clubhouse as a tool to talk about people that talk about things with other people that are like-minded or not so like-minded, and just learning how to navigate the hostilities with the productivity that comes with Clubhouse. So in that vein, I had pitched about just Black maternal health and some of the projects that we were working on. Tia has a podcast that I hope that you will interweave into your conversation as well. And I've been a guest on her podcast for twice now. And I just want to say that she's been amazing in just holding space in me talking about what it means to be a doula and creating a legacy. And then also covered just having the conversation of the intention of the community grant project that I just wrapped up, of which Donette sang at the reception after the project was over. So I'm just a really big proponent of cross-community collaboration. And it's a term that I'm really wanting to coin. And I think the best people to exemplify that, to display that, are Black women, and just how resourceful we can be. Like you were saying, Dafina, with your being intentional about your external, outside of your home network. So now Tia is a part of my network. And it's been awesome for the last almost a year. Spring, maybe. I don't remember, but it's
probably a little bit after the summer.
Oh, wow. It feels
because
like
we launched the Fresh Perspective Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah. Okay. I remember that. Okay, cool. Well, we want to just thank you for being here with us today. And we're going to just, talk with you about your story as it relates to having a miscarriage and the triumphs of having a rainbow after, but also experiencing the journey of premature birth. So really excited because I love your story, and I'm going to go ahead and give you the mic.
Well, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. Hello to all you ladies. Thank you for, tuning in today. I was very, very honored when she asked me, to join you guys and speak with you today. Marpeza has been a blessing to my life. Let me say that first and foremost. I did meet her on Clubhouse, and she was totally willing to come onto the show. I was still very, very green at the time, not comfortable in front of the camera. But, when I reached out to her after hearing her pitch, she was 110% on board with coming on the show and just giving information about the Mahogany Mothers Circle, about being a doula, and just a lot of the things that she does for the community. So thank you for that. And thank you for this space. So I'm Tia Williams Brown, and I'm also known as Lady Fresh. That is my name on social media. And that's the name that I use on my podcast, which is The Fresh Perspective. We launched that podcast back in May of 2022. As far as what I've learned from the pandemic, I think the biggest thing that I learned, that I took from that experience, was that it's okay to pause. That it sometimes it's necessary for there to be a pause. And we just happen to see it on a global stage. But a lot of times especially us as mothers and Black mothers, we need to pause. And so we had to reconnect with our families. We had to reconnect with our communities and really be at home. Like we had no choice, you know. I did work quite a bit throughout the pandemic, but it was a lot of time dedicated to the kids and, you know, just keeping them calm and figuring out how to maneuver through such a drastic change. So I think the biggest thing for me that I learned during the pandemic was just, you know, to just pause. You had to put everything down and just really concentrate on the immediate, which is, you know, the family. As far as my podcast is, I would like to believe it's a very positive space. You know, we have our times where we have a little bit of shenanigans, but the whole concept of the platform is to provide information on different talents, different industries, things that we may think we're not capable of doing. I bring on people to explain it from zero. You know, how to build this, how to build that, how to get involved with, you know, different organizations. You could be a fashion designer, you could be a rapper, you can be an author. I've had all those types of people on my shows. And what they do is they provide a space where we can come and we can learn. I don't have all the answers. So I try to bring people on that, you know, you might be interested in finding more about what they do. And so Marpeza was a big part of that. Explaining being a doula, how important a doula is. She really put a lot of things in perspective for me. And I kind of wish that through my journey of having children that I would have had a doula involved with that process. So
yeah, and there was an episode that I you know, in our conversation, I didn't know that it was far more personal when you had your guest Ebony. Was it Ebony?
Her last name.
But anyway,
she was amazing.
Yeah, she was, but you were able to really connect because of your story as well. And so, you know, I was on the show originally to like chime in. But as the doula, as the two were talking, I just knew to shut my mouth because it was a space that I didn't have complete, you know, just listening. I can be empathetic and listen, but I didn't really have a frame of reference the way that you were able to connect with her. So I love to just delve in and have that conversation about, you know, your journey in motherhood and how it wasn't all of what you wanted and why you would have wanted a doula. So I will, you know, let you take that where you want to take that in conversation.
Okay. So on the show, we had an episode where we discussed prematurity awareness. And so what the focus of my show is going to be more often now, starting the new year, is to focus more on awarenesses each month. So like this evening, I have a show today about thyroid awareness. So we'll be discussing thyroid disease, you know, how it affects our community, the things to look for, the symptoms, the signs, and how easily it can be overlooked. That particular month, we discussed prematurity awareness, which is a very personal experience and journey for me and my husband. And our special guest that day was Miss Ebony Ford. And she was simply amazing. Her story briefly was, you know, she's had several miscarriages. And then she finally did get pregnant and deliver her baby, but she delivered her baby very early. And she basically takes us through the entire journey for her and her husband as a premature mother. And I think the common misconception with prematurity is that it ends when you leave the hospital. And that is totally not the case. A lot of times premature babies experience chronic health issues throughout their entire life, if they're fortunate enough to live a long life. And so she, through her Instagram post, shows a lot of what her daily rituals are, what she does with her daughter, who is now 4 years old, and she is now expecting a baby boy in the next few weeks. So we're really, really happy for her and during her journey. At that time, I felt comfortable enough, and I've never really had a problem discussing my journey, but I've never done it on a public platform. And so at that time, I felt comfortable enough to discuss my journey with Brooke, which was my premature baby that was delivered in April of 2012. She was born at 1 pound, 5 ounces, and my journey with her started long before the day she was born. And so with Brooke, of course, excited after 10 years, I think it was, of my oldest was 10 years old. And so this was almost like a completely new experience. Things were different than when I had a baby at 21 versus, having another child. And so naturally we're excited. I finally got the right guy, everything is on the up and up. At my 4-month, I think it was around 4.5 months, I went in for my sonogram. It might've been 5. I went in for my sonogram, excited to find out what we are having. So, that's the big thing. Now, back then, it wasn't all the gender reveal stuff like it is today, but, we're just going to get the sonogram. We're excited. She does the sonogram. She pulls me into another room and says, the doctor needs to see you. So I know things don't change that much. Usually when you go in for a sonogram, you go home after, you don't usually have to see the doctor. And so I kind of thought something might not be right. So they put us in another room. The doctor comes in, she sits down, and she just has this look on her face that is just like, okay, something's not right. And so she explained to me that during the sonogram, they discovered that I was already 2.5 centimeters dilated. So at 5 months, that's the last thing that you want to hear. And so I was immediately admitted into the hospital, which was connected to the building I was in. So they immediately admitted me into the hospital. Now, of course, me being such a workaholic, I run several businesses. I'm like, oh my God, I'm being admitted into the hospital. And I wasn't at the time really thinking of there being anything wrong with the baby. I was more of like, I'll be fine. Like, what they're going to fix this and I'm going to get out of here. I had no idea that my journey would last in that hospital for at least 35 days. And so I was admitted, and the doctors were trying to figure out exactly what was going on, what caused it, because they couldn't tell whether or not it was something, if it was like I was going into preterm labor or if I had an incompetent cervix. And that took a while for them to try to determine which condition I was suffering from. When I tell you, it was definitely an experience. Just being poked at and probed at and tests here and tests there and doctors in and out. My husband was by my side the entire time. My brother was there, and my sister, who's right here, actually flew in that evening. My husband got on the phone with her, unbeknownst to me, and let her know what was going on. And somehow or another, several hours after being admitted into the hospital, I woke up and my sister was there. And so as the days went on, we tried to figure out what was causing it and how to fix it. So at this point, the sac the baby's in, the amniotic bag, was starting to protrude through, and they decided that they needed to do a procedure called a cerclage. So they put me in Trendelenburg, which is like basically tilted onto your head for like days, trying to get the bag to descend back enough to stitch me up. So basically the cerclage is a surgical procedure where they put stitches in the cervix to keep everything in. So there were a whole bunch of other things that had to be done, amniocentesis to make sure the pregnancy was viable. They weren't stitching up a bad pregnancy because I was showing some form of infection. So once we got past that, we got the cerclage in. And of course you think, okay, cerclage is in. They keep telling me that this is going to increase my chances, things will be better. But less than maybe an hour after being released from the recovery, I noticed that I was wet. And so they came and checked, and it was like, well, it appears that the doctor probably nicked your bag doing the cerclage. So at that point, they couldn't risk a chance of the pregnancy getting infected or for me to get an infection. So they were going to have to remove the cerclage, which at that point meant that more than likely the bag was going to descend again, and I was probably going to end up delivering. They gave me the option of going ahead and inducing labor, delivering the baby, and just saying my goodbyes. At the time, my husband was out of town. My sister was still by my side. And, you know, at first, you know, I'd been there now, almost 2 weeks. And part of me wanted to give up. Part of me was just like, I'm tired. I've been fighting. I've been poked. I've been stabbed. My sister could tell you, it was a whole ordeal just getting PICC lines put in because my veins were small. Just so many different difficult elements being a part of that. Like, it wasn't just a straightforward, you know, you're dilated 2.5 centimeters. We need to figure out how to stop this, you know, labor. It wasn't just as simple as that. It just seemed like every day it was something new. But I will say I was able to keep my spirits up. You know, a lot of the people that came in, even down to the janitors that were cleaning the toilets and the floor, they was like, you've been so kind and so patient. And so, you know, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna act crazy with the people that's trying to help me, you know, save my baby's life. But at the same time, I was still feeling very deflated. I was feeling very tired. And, you know, I really contemplated not fighting anymore and inducing labor and letting go, because I didn't think that I could handle continuing this and then losing the child anyway. But I spoke to my husband on the phone, and it happened to be one of his son's birthday. It was April 5th. I'll never forget. And so I was telling him what the doctor said, and he said, so I'm finding out that I'm going to lose my daughter on my son's birthday. And just that statement alone, it revitalized me. It told me that I needed to keep fighting. This was what I was designed to do, to keep fighting. And so I kept fighting for her. She had a name. She had a heartbeat. She had pictures already. She had hair and fingernails already. So I needed to keep fighting for her. And so I did just that. I was able to hold on to her for another couple of weeks. Viability for babies are typically after 24 weeks. More than likely, baby can be delivered and viable, with assistance, of course. They gave me medication to mature her lungs, and the goal was to try to keep her in to 28 weeks. I made it to 23 weeks and 4 days. So on April 20th, I delivered Brooklyn Brown, and she was 1 pound, 5 ounces. I'd never seen a baby that small in my life. I've seen them on TV, but never in person. And when I say she literally could fit in the palm of my hand, she could fit in the palm of my hand. I always say she was see-through. I could see all of her veins and everything, but she was still a pretty little baby. She had a lot of hair on her, but you know, she was my baby. She was my baby, and she had really big feet. So I still fell in love with her instantly. I wasn't able to see her right away because I spiked a fever. So I couldn't see her for 48 hours. So of course, naturally, that was torment for me. But I told Dad, you go see her right away. She needs to see one of us. She needs to know that we're here. So she did survive birth. And I was with her every single day of her life. I went to see her in the NICU. I spent skin time with her. Dad spent skin time with her. Family, got to come see her. She was a little bit of a princess, as the nurses would say, because she didn't like to be touched, which was natural because she was still supposed to be in the womb. But she really liked to get her hair washed. so that was kind of enjoyment going there. And she would get her baths and she would cry and cry, but when it got to washing her hair, she would not cry. Like it was the weirdest thing. So she actually started doing better. She was progressing. About 2 weeks, she was able to come off of one of the breathing tubes and go into, she was able to breathe a little bit more on her own. She just had maybe like the little oxygen. But on May 23rd, it was actually a day after I had to have surgery. They told me that she was sick. And so I prayed over my baby. I put an angel in her incubator. I prayed over her. I went back home. The next morning, they was like, she's really, really sick. You really need to come back. So me and my husband went back. And they told us that she suffered from a common premature baby, something that is very common amongst preemies, which is called NEC, which is necrotizing enterocolitis, and it basically affects the intestines and the bowels. And so basically her bowels were obstructed. She wasn't producing any urine. And her abdomen was very much distended. So, they were just telling us that the prognosis didn't look very good. They wanted to move her right across the street to a children's hospital, but unfortunately she wasn't strong enough to make that trip. And so at that point, we basically just had to love on her. We just had to love on her and hold her and just let her know how much we loved her for that day. And that's what we did. My husband's oldest son, I'll never forget, was graduating from high school that day. And he didn't want to go. He didn't want to leave us. And I kept saying, you have to go. She's going to wait for you. She's going to wait for you. She's not going anywhere until her daddy is here. And he kept fighting me on this. It was like, I'm not leaving y'all. I need to be here. And I was like, you need to see your son walk across that stage. I said, Brooke is going to be here when you get back. And so he left. He went to the graduation and he came back to the hospital. He got to the hospital around, I want to say it was 9:58. And Brooklyn Brown took her last breath at 10:13 that evening in our arms, surrounded by love. And I always do get emotional telling that story, but we had to make a choice whether or not her quality of life would have been something she would have wanted, to have only 20% of her bowel removed, remaining if she made it to the children's hospital. Her quality of life, a colostomy bag, just a lot of those things that you have to make a choice about. You think about that child and you think about whether or not that is a life fit for them. And, the doctors gave their advisements and we just held our baby and we just loved on our baby and we let God take control of that. And it just wasn't meant to be at that time. And it took a while. It took a while to accept that she wasn't here, that, we put all of that time into saving her and not be able to take your baby home. It was really, really difficult. But, it was a journey that was meant for us. It was designed for us. It made us who we were. And I think it prepared us for life together, because I feel like that brought us closer together, whereas some people will experience a loss like that and it tear them completely apart. And that didn't happen for me and my husband. We weren't married at the time, but it seriously fused us together in a way that most people will never understand, and I hope they never understand. But we were blessed a year and a half later with London, and she's happy, healthy. She's a pain in the butt. She's all of those things. My rainbow baby. She, we had a plan in place when it came time for her. Of course, naturally, when that stick turned, it was like fear came over my body that I was going to experience this again. they diagnosed me with having an incompetent cervix. And so when you have an incompetent cervix, that's typically something that you are born, like not born with, but you experience it from pregnancy in the very beginning. So they were really like looking at me like an anomaly, because I delivered my oldest daughter with no issues, no complications. In fact, we had to evict her. She was at 41 weeks when it was time to get her out of there, and I had no issues. So they were trying to figure out exactly, you know, what happened. But, you know, we had a plan in place, and my doctor was the same doctor, and he was amazing. And he, you know, he said, look, this is a different pregnancy. We are prepared. We know what we're facing. And so they put me basically on a plan. I didn't have to do bed rest as long as everything looked good. And I was considered high risk. So I would have to see a doctor every 2 weeks from the very beginning. And we scheduled to have a cerclage put in at 12 weeks so that there would be no issues as far as my cervix being incompetent and me going into, you know, any preterm labor or anything like that. So I got the cerclage put in place in May of 2013, and it was removed at, so they removed it when they delivered her. So I had to have a C-section. So what they did, they just removed it at 37 weeks because I had to deliver at 37 weeks. So they removed the cerclage, and I had a happy, healthy baby girl, over 7 pounds, you know, and I definitely am feeling very blessed to have experienced what I did with Brooke. And a lot of people don't understand what I mean when I say that. It humbled me. It made me look at life differently, look at how fragile it is and how precious it is. And, you know, with my sister being here, you know, we just recently lost our brother. And I often make the comparison that losing a child and then losing a sibling is eerily similar to me, because it feels unnatural. If, you know, you're supposed to bury your parents. It hurts, but you're supposed to bury your parents. You're supposed to bury your grandparents. But losing a child and losing a sibling, it feels wrong. It feels like it's against nature. And so having experienced both of those, I definitely wish that I would have taken advantage of support back then. I went to one support group and I felt like it wasn't for me, and I left. And then I looked years later and realized how much I probably would have benefited from having people tell their stories like I'm doing now, having people share what their experiences were. So I knew I wasn't alone, and that, you know, their story could help me heal. And that's what I'm hoping that my story does, is to help people heal. Technology has been advanced significantly since 2012. Babies are surviving prematurity at much higher rates than they were back then. Babies are surviving neck much more than they were back then. And, you know, I look back and I wonder, you know, had I delivered today, if Brooke would still be with us. So, you know, I have no regrets. I think of her often. I feel like she's always with me. And I'm super blessed. And I appreciate you ladies for providing this space for mothers to be able to share stories such as this that can help other people. Because I didn't take advantage of that back then. And I wasn't, that one meeting I went to, I wasn't surrounded by people that looked like me. And I know that may not mean anything, but it meant something to me. You know, I was surrounded by people that, you know, I didn't feel like could understand what I was going through, even though they lost and they suffered the loss. But to have people that, you know, look like you and have some of your stories, and, you know, us being women and doctors not listening to us, you know, when we tell them what's going on with us, when we tell them about our pain, when we tell them, it's important for us to have spaces like this. And so I appreciate you, Marpeza, for giving me the opportunity to share that. And I hope that, you know, if anybody else watches this, that it can be something that, you know, they learn something from.
Right on. Ooh. Ooh, wait. Thank you for just packaging your story. Hold on. Well, you know what? Before I say my remarks, are there any questions?
Oh yeah, and you guys can ask questions.
I just want to say thank you for sharing that story. I don't have a question so much as a comment of just how incredible motherhood is, the advocacy you have to do for yourself, the education you have to give yourself, so that you can care for your child, your individual child's needs properly is like, it's like astronomical, right? I mean, I hear you talking about all these procedures and different things. I mean, the room would have been spinning, somebody trying to explain that to me right after having a baby who was sick, right? And so I just wanted to acknowledge you in that space and just say, wow, I'm just blown away and so impressed by the way you educated yourself so that you could advocate for your child.
Oh, absolutely. I felt it necessary.
Yeah.
You know, I felt it necessary. And I want to be more of an advocate for others as well. And so that's why, again, I really appreciate spaces such as this. And I feel like, you know, me and Marpeza really clicked instantly. And I realize now it's because we're both Capricorns. But, you know, we clicked instantly because I think I see the need and I see what you guys are doing. And I think that it's amazing, and anything that I can do to help foster those, you know, relationships with other women and other mothers, I'm all for it.
I also recall you mentioning earlier about how being a pandemic pregnancy, you were able to focus on home and what's really important. And what stood out to me about that was also, as a pandemic mother, I experienced the same thing. I am a single Black woman. I thought that I had the right person, as you said, when I decided to agree to have my 2-year-old, who's now almost 3, he's 2, during the pandemic. And I just remember the expectation being to work, until basically I went into labor. And the only thing that stopped me from doing that was pandemic, and everybody was really scared and nobody knew enough about it to put the pregnant lady out to work 40 hours a week. We just didn't know enough. Like, I got pregnant January and I think the shutdown happened February.
Yeah.
Or I found out I was pregnant in January. And so that was just like a whirlwind. But I have 2 other children, and I literally worked until the day I went into labor with them. But this idea of, no, we're just going to keep you home. We're going to go to the grocery store for you. You need to just sit in the recliner and just stay put. That had never happened to me. I'd had 2 other pregnancies. That had never happened to me. Just being able to be still, being able to be with my family. Now, sometimes I was going crazy. I wanted to get out of the house. I wanted to go places and do things. And having a baby without that community definitely had its setbacks. But that really stood out to me, what you said about that. Like, you got to focus on family. And, you know, someone else in the group said that you got to stay home and get some work done. Like, whoa, I don't know how many other Black and brown mamas experienced that, but I didn't even realize that that was a reality or a privilege that I could take advantage of until pandemic. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, other groups, be it class or cultural groups, are benefiting from these privileges for probably generations. But the thought had never occurred to me that I could just work from home and take care of my baby. What? I don't have to scramble and find childcare. I don't have to work myself to the bone. I don't have to tell everybody I'm doing okay because I'm focused on the little 2-3 weeks I'm gonna take off after the baby, and I'm just gonna work until the baby's born. You know, that's just, and I imagine that played, some part in, Well, you said you didn't have the baby during the pandemic. Was that another mom?
I didn't. Yeah, no.
Right. That was another mama who had the
Yeah.
baby.
I did no babies.
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
No,
that stood out to me.
Yeah, I had a kindergartner and a senior in high school. So the pandemic did, I don't like to say harm, but it changed the course of our life, because I feel like we were cheated out of some very, very huge milestones that year. So I have one in kindergarten who only went to school for what? Let me see, August, September, October, November, December, January, March. So she got 6 months of school. She was excited about starting school, and then no more school. So it was kind of like, what? And then she had to do all the virtual learning and all of that. So for her to be so young and experience that, it was kind of a culture shock, having to teach her regular ways of doing things, but then pandemic ways of doing things. And like, you go back to school and this is not normally how it's done. And so that was hard. But then I also had the senior that missed out on senior trip. She didn't have a prom. Graduation was delayed. All of these things you as a 17-year-old kid look forward to after 12 years of school is all taken away from you. I'll never forget the day the shutdown happened. She's reading on her phone and Governor Kelly said that all schools would be shut down until further notice. And she just bust out in tears. And I felt so helpless because I know how excited she was. We had just bought a $600 prom dress like 4 days before. This was something that was a huge milestone for her, and it was taken away. And so as a parent, you feel, I felt inadequate to soothe her pain. Like I felt terrible that it was nothing I could do to soothe that, because I felt robbed as well. That's my child. I've been waiting for you to graduate high school too. And so it was really, really hard. But, we made up for it. We threw her what I call a birthday promuation, which is where in July, we celebrated her 18th birthday. She got to walk the stage that same weekend and get her diploma. And she got to put on that expensive prom dress and prance and take pictures for her family and friends that flew in from out of town. So, as parents, we got to think on our feet and figure out how to maneuver and make things, work for our kids. So, the pandemic definitely did a lot of that for us.
Yeah. Now I have a question for you again. So your kindergartner, that would have been the rainbow premature baby.
That's the rainbow baby.
Yeah. Right. And so, I think a lot of us, as mothers, were the first teachers of these babies, right? But I don't think many of us were prepared to be full-time kindergarten class or second grade class or fifth grade class or whatever class your baby was supposed to be in. I know I had an infant, so I was kind of like in the clear, like, whoo, but I also had a senior as you did. And we graduated with her sticking out of the sunroof of my car. Drove by, they just did it on a big announcement in front of the school, and everybody had their cars decorated. It was a drive-through graduation, and she also had a meltdown. What about prom? So I feel you. She was really upset.
A lot of tears.
It was a lot of tears. What about this and this? And she had plans. And so I'm just wondering what that was like, that impact. What do you think that there were already some challenges as far as development as a preemie, or do you think you had passed that hump and now we were ready for school, and then the absence of school kind of set us back a little? I just was curious what you thought.
As far as my daughter?
As far as your kindergartners?
Yeah, well, she wasn't a preemie though. The preemie was the one that we lost. So I developed her. I gave birth to my premature daughter at 23 weeks and like 4 or 5 days. And she passed away 35 days after. Now, London, she was born at 37 weeks, but it was scheduled only because of my first pregnancy. When I had my oldest daughter, I was cut. They cut me I think they cut me horizontally, I believe, or vertically. No, they cut me vertically under on my cervix, on my uterus. So when I delivered her, I can't labor anymore. So basically I have any child that I have to have a C-section. So they scheduled me for delivery at 37 weeks, which is the threshold to be not considered premature. So London has no issue. Like she's smart as a whip. I mean, that girl, she adjusts to change very well. She, you can explain something to her and it resonates with her. So, it's just more of the, just finding a way to make her understand what's going on in the world when I don't know what's going on in the world. That was what I found to be challenging when dealing with the kindergartner. But, kids are resilient. They just kind of go with the flow, and we really had to be a community in here when it came to her getting on the virtual learning. And, these kids are born knowing how to use an iPad and a cell phone. So she took that and she was really, really good with it. But of course she was excited when she was able to go back into the classroom.
And I apologize for that misunderstanding around.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, because I think that we're looking at so I'm a psychology minor, we're looking at a huge shift in that whole generation, and how they're going to behave in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years is super fascinating to me, because I do not imagine, there's just normal things about human nature, right? But I'm sure there'll be differences. Like these kids didn't get to see faces. Babies learn from faces.
Right. Yeah.
Faces was covered. And, the interaction with other children in our community, especially for Indigenous babies, it's just really interesting to me to see what that shift is going to look like in a few years. So that's why I ask.
Yeah, I'm interested too in that whole shift, how it's going to help those of us who are older adjust. Because I think about like how frustrated I was teaching my mom how to use the email or like logging online, how frustrated I was. Like, what do you mean subject at? Like,
well, it's gonna be our turn one day. It's already happening. My daughter be like, "Really, Mom?"
You're right. It's like that with the iPhone. My kid was like, do you know how to do the screen share with the thing? I'm like, no, can you show me? And they're like, oh my God.
Yeah, I don't even ask her no more. I just Google it.
What'd you say? Not teaching.
I don't even ask her no more. I just Google it. Right. No reason to even ask anybody anything anymore. I just Google it, because you're not gonna make me feel like I'm old.
You can Google a lot of things.
Cool. I'm still cool.
I had a hybrid and I had to get a jump. And so there were men recently around who were like, oh yeah, we're going to get you straight, sis. Don't worry about it. Step back. And they weren't getting anything done. And I'm going to Google it real quick. And I was like, I think you're supposed to put a, here. And they're like, nah, that's not how, but it's a hybrid. It's a little different. And I'm like, I don't know. This video is showing me that you're supposed to put it here. And I let him fiddle with it for 20 minutes, but it ended up that I was correct and that I had actually learned.
Of course you were.
How to do it correctly off of Google.
That is not even a surprise. That was a duh. Okay, so we have about 30 minutes. What I wanted to do is just give a couple of announcements. If anyone else has any announcements. Well, first of all, Tia, how can we find you? When are your shows? And yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. There's no structure to my life right now. I'm kind of doing my shows. I'm just getting back into it. Like I said, we just recently lost our oldest brother. And I've really been trying to come into a more positive space. And so doing things like this and doing my show really does that for me. Like it puts me in a much better mood, and but it's the preparation leading up to it. It's the getting out of the bed. It's the getting in the shower and like just all the things that you just like, I really just don't feel like it today. And I'm just trying to work through that. But I'm back to doing the shows. Like I said, my goal is to each month, I would like to highlight 1 to 2 different awarenesses for the month. Mm-hmm. So this month there is like poverty awareness. This month there's human trafficking. I really wanted to tackle that one. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a guest to do the show for that. So I might just, talk about it a little bit just to highlight it. But we have a great episode today. It's at 4 p.m. my time, 3 p.m. your time. It is about thyroid disease. And we have a young lady named AP Young. She's a like a writer and like a motivational speaker. And she also produces content. And she'll be discussing that with us today. I typically will do shows Saturday, Sunday. I might try to get one in during the week. But you can always, subscribe to the channel, The Fresh Perspective, turn on your notifications, and it'll let you know whenever I post content or I'm going to go live. I do all of my shows live. I keep saying I want to do some pre-records and start uploading them. I just haven't gotten savvy with the editing yet. But, I would love to have you ladies come by. I, definitely would love to have you come do a show with me one day. That would be amazing. I'm also on Instagram at @Iam_LadyFresh. And I usually post my content, dates and times and everything there as well.
I love it. And I love the show. I'm a friend to the show.
You are a friend to the show. You were like the first friend to the show.
Really? For when you first started, huh?
So when I start, yeah, because I had another show the year before. But this is my, my solo show. And so I was like, Marquise Allen, friend to the show.
We have had some discussion about having a brunch in St. Louis.
Okay.
Kansas City. My bad.
I was going to say, we meeting?
No, Kansas City. We talked about it.
Definitely got to hit Kansas City, and I in return will definitely be coming out that way.
Yeah. Okay, Donette, you got the flyer, so you go next.
Right. I don't know much about the editing either. It's backwards. Can you see it forwards?
I can see it forward.
Do y'all see mine forward or backwards?
I see yours forward.
Forward.
Okay, so it's just me that see it backwards. Okay. All right.
Okay, so as you can see here, we're planning it's kind of cut off, but maybe there's like a general, maybe I could put it in the chat. Let me see. I might be able to put it in the chat. Let me see. So I sit on the board at Metro Caring Food Pantry here in Denver, Colorado. I'm all about the food justice, food access, and would love to, and think it's necessary to apply to all the work that I do with mamas and babies. Eating and access to food is super important when you're breastfeeding, when you're pregnant, when you have families. And so I just put it in the chat. It's behind me. It's on Saturday, February 11th. We are also offering for about an hour or two free baby and me pictures with a certified infant photographer. I'll be serving waffles. I own a business, waffles, sticky drip waffles. Ooh. So it's free waffles with RSVP to babycafe.lactation@gmail.com. Just send me an email. Let me know you're coming, you're bringing some kids or however many folks you're going to bring with you. And there'll be opportunities to take pictures with your babies and just commune with some other mamas and learn about so we do a breastfeeding support group at Metro Caring on Fridays at lunchtime at 12:30. And we do a weight-based. So we'll weigh your baby. If you have an opportunity to feed your baby, we can weigh baby after. And that's always kind of fun to see. If you have any questions, we have certified lactation counselors that come to the meetings every Friday. So you can kind of ask. There's doulas that come. So it's just like a really big open conversation, comfortable seating, some toys for the kiddos to play with. But really just an opportunity to commune with some other mamas. And I'm hoping that this brunch, this free brunch with RSVP, will be a great opportunity for us to recruit some more folks and let them know about the Fridays, but also let's get some pictures with these adorable babies if we can. And like I said, it's free with RSVP, so you can't beat that. Free pictures and free waffles, and bring the kids. And what's really great about Fridays too is if you're in need of food, we can get you a voucher to go shopping in the food market that day as well. So you can leave with food if you need to.
Love it. I'm putting it in our doula, in our little doula group.
I also have a flyer in Spanish as well, so I'll share.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think Davina is wanting to come in.
Yeah. Thanks so much for being here and sharing your story. It's another.
Truly. Okay, Davina's back in. Yay! Thank you, Donna. And she put the flyer in the chat. So I will be sharing that as well. February 11th. That's gonna be so amazing. So I have 2 announcements and then we can wrap it on up. So the first is I joined the Birth Squad, and it's online, I think, as the birthsquad.org, but it's a mental health resource, Black therapists, 2 Black therapists that have support groups, but also they have peer support groups as well. So how it works is a mama schedules time to have a phone call to talk with a facilitator, such as myself or one of the therapists. They get plugged into a support group. We have 7 groups a week. They can pick any one. There's some in Spanish as well. So I'll let you know. I'll get Spanish stuff for you too, as done that, if we can do some cross promos as well. And so what I would really love, if you know mothers, birth parents that you think would be open to my classes, let me know. That way I could just know. It's Friday at 10 and then Friday at 2. And I believe the 2 o'clock is just Black mothers, but 10 o'clock is for everyone. So there's that. The other one is Mahogany Mothers Circle. We're going to do a 5K on May 13th. You don't have to run. You can walk. You can walk and run. You can jog with a little bit of walking, with a little bit of running. Okay? You could push a stroller. It's gonna be so fun. But do not wear shoes that you love, because they're gonna get dirty. Your clothes are gonna get dirty. Wear the t-shirt they gave you. They run a lot of specials. So what I'm gonna do is post. I'm gonna post the link every so often when it's free, but it ends up being $10. But the team is Pink Panther is the team. But let me know so I can give you the password, because I can't remember it right now. But May 13th, it'll be a lot of fun. We can even I'm always hungry after a 5K, but we won't mess it up. Maybe we'll do bring food or something. But those are my 2 announcements. And tomorrow we have our podcast. Oh, no, I have more announcements. Tomorrow, every Monday, is our podcast as well. Tia, we definitely do want to schedule a time when we can come together and have another combo on your show.
Absolutely.
And then we have a birth center tour coming up on January 29th. And we'll do that once a month. The last Sunday of every month, we'll be touring Seasons Birth Center, Midwest Birth Center in Thornton. And that is seriously all that I have.
I was going to ask Marpeza, the birthing, the birthing circle thing, is that open to women all over the United States, or is it just
Well, that's a good question. We wouldn't turn them away, but the target audience is Denver metro area, mainly because the resources and funding is like so direct. And then also once the weather gets to where everyone's wanting to drive around, I was proposing one of my groups be at the museum. So the museum. So I definitely want it to be something where, hopefully by that time we have a big group going to do the bubble run, the 5K bubble run.
How many miles is 5K again? What is that, like
3.5 miles? 3.5. Yeah.
Where's it gonna be? Like, do you know the location? Like
the Adams County Fairgrounds.
Oh, okay. Ooh, that makes me nervous.
And you can start training now. There's an app called C25K.
Mm-hmm.
There's an app.
I need to walk.
Yeah, you could just walk practice getting the walk in. And since I turned 40, I read somewhere that it's important to make sure I'm lifting weights. Yeah. So just know I'll be lifting these weights as well.
I'll be 40 in 3 weeks?
Looking forward to it. It's great on this side thus far.
Me too.
Yeah, I think it's just so funny being a 40-year-old with a 1-year-old.
I know it's it's perfect. Well, it's so funny. Definitely check our other Mahogany Mothers Circle like groups on our YouTube, because we actually had one about fertility after 35.
Mm-hmm.
And Liz that did it, she's based out of Philly, and she was just talking about like her organization is called Fertile AF, and she had just great statistics about a lot of women, period, are waiting later in life. So why scrutinize the way that they do? Like there's something underlying about that. So.
Yeah, and with the right community and support, it can absolutely be done. I'm turning 40 in just a couple months here myself, and I have a 2-year-old. And my last child before that was graduating from high school, as Lady Fresh. So I get it. Like that's a huge age gap in there, and I was like, "Oh, how can we do this?" Well, I did it, and it can be done.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just definitely the future. It's happening. People are waiting a little bit longer nowadays.
I love it. I mean, I don't mind it at all. I think what it is for me is that I just have to get back to, like Marpesa was saying, I have to think about my body now and the things that I have to do to keep myself in shape, and not even necessarily, I mean, I guess it is in shape, but just like, so I don't feel, so I can move around and run around with her and not feel like, oh, I can't move or I can't do this, because that's the last thing I want to happen. Because she's a very, very, very active little 1-year-old. So,
well, I think I might be getting. Hi. I think I might be trying to sign up for this too, because I'm feeling the burn at almost 40. I have a little boy, and no knock to the genders or what is specific or not, but he is wearing me out. I'm like, if you don't stop using my head for a trampoline or a jungle gym, like I'm so tired. I'm tired, son.
Right.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
I gotta get active. So I have a little bit more energy for him. I'd be down to walk with you. I'm wondering if we could bring the strollers out and push them.
Yeah, no, you can.
Yeah, I would have to. I mean,
we could totally. Yeah, you do the whole stroller thing. Like they'll send you a whole packet. I can get everybody's packet. We could do a pregame, but it's just a lot of fun, and it's about the fun. And there's this book, Charla. I'm wrapping up. Hold on 1 second. There's this book that I was listening to the other day that's on my Audible, and he was talking about living in the flow and how the moment you're exercising out of function because you want to lose weight or whatever without it being about the pleasure, you've got it all wrong.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my gosh, how I compartmentalize exercises like this thing I have to do. How can I change this narrative to be like, I love being outside and walking, being gentle with my body, you know, just for the enjoyment of seeing my, you know, I was like, so let's bubble run.
So walk. It's called Bubble Run. So do you remember the dates? I forgot. Did you tell us the dates?
May 13th.
May 13th. Okay.
And I'll post all the team stuff.
Okay. We can do it. Let's do it. That's enough.
Let's do it. It's gonna be so fun.
I'm doing it. I would do it.
Y'all make sure y'all take some pictures.
Of course. Yes. Then we'll go to then we're gonna come to Kansas City for some barbecue.
Oh, I love barbecue.
That I can help you with.
It takes us 10 hours to get there.
I love Kansas City. That's like my second home.
Is it really?
Wow.
Oh, well, I mean, I haven't been since I've been in like super grown, but we used to go there every year when my grandma was living. My grandparents, we used to go out there and visit every year. So
I really do want to go.
I definitely want to go back.
No, the city is alive right now because of the Chiefs. So,
yeah.
I got stuck in the traffic yesterday. It was crazy. The stadium let out and it was just like chaos.
I bet.
So
I love
very lively right now. But
lit.
I have a
show.
My guest that's on my next show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you all in 2 weeks. Slay Fresh anytime, come join us, but we'll be in touch.
Absolutely.
Everyone have a beautiful week. Absolutely.
You too.
All right. Talk soon, everyone.
Bye.
Information.